Hello, I'm Phil Rogofsky, the director of the Maryland STEM Festival. Today we have a program on mobile apps, and mobile apps are becoming a very critical part of our lives. Everybody has them, everybody uses them, and they make our lives much easier. So we have someone that's going to be showing us how to make them. If you want to let the world know about this program currently or in a future point, our hashtag is MDSTEMFest. And we ask you that you stay muted, but if you have questions, you can send them to me and I will relay them to Bori. And at the end of the program, I will provide you with a link to our survey, which we'd appreciate if you complete after the event. So I'm turning the program over to Bori, who is going to explain to us how to create a mobile app. Thank you, Bori.
Thank you, Phil. Hello, everyone. As Phil said, my name is Bori, and actually let me start the presentation and share my screen. And Phil, just let me know when we're good to go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. We're good to go.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bori Oludemi. And today's talk is about an introduction to mobile app development. I'm currently a software engineer at Capital One. And what I do at Capital One is I actually build mobile apps, but especially for iPads, because in our cafes and our branches, we have our bankers serve our customers using the iPad. So the apps that run on those iPads are the apps that my team makes. So today I'm here to basically just tell you my journey about how I went about learning how to write mobile apps. So I'll give you a quick background. I went to the University of Maryland. This was when I was back in the day. This was like, I don't know, 10 years. No, not 10 years ago, 7 years ago. I moved to the country from Nigeria in 2009. And I went to a community college, and then I went to university afterwards. So, and then when I went to university, I studied computer science. And in computer science, they don't really teach you how to write mobile apps. But later on in the course or in the presentation, you'll see that I'll and I'll also send this out to Phil. I'll have a lot of resources that you can use to learn. But my point is, I had to learn, in addition to studying computer science, I had to learn how to write mobile apps on my own. So I'm hoping that I can encourage you all and interest you all in learning how to write mobile apps, because like Phil said, mobile is becoming, I mean, everything is mobile now. Everything is mobile now, and a lot of companies are looking for mobile developers. So definitely, I would encourage you all to help us out in the future by learning how to write mobile apps. And I'll go ahead and start. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the definition of mobile app development. So I'm sure everyone knows what a mobile is and what a mobile app is, but the development of an app or a mobile app is just the process of creating or developing apps for a mobile app. So every app that you have in your phone has been developed by somebody or some team or some company. So there are various types of mobile devices, and this is important. I know this is kind of weird that I'm mentioning this, but you see why in the next slide. But there are different types of mobile apps. We have iPhone, we have Samsung, we have iPad, Google Pixel, Nokia, Motorola. There's so many mobile devices out there that I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with. Now, the reason why I had that last slide was because all these mobile devices can be basically categorized into two categories, basically. So the first one is iOS, which is the operating system that runs on iPhone and iPad. Lately, they've actually changed the operating system that runs on the iPad. It's called iPad OS. But for the sake of this presentation, I will just categorize everything as iOS. So basically, Apple owns iOS, and usually all the operating systems that run on their mobile devices is usually just iOS. And the rest can be just categorized into Android, because really every other phone like Samsung, Google Pixel, Motorola, Nokia, they all run Android, which is it's pretty interesting because basically if you look at the global world market, there are more Android running devices than iPhones. I think in the US, I think it's more iPhones or iOS devices, but in the world in general, because Android devices are cheaper, so a lot more people can access Android. So this is I'm telling you this really to kind of give you the information in terms of like, hey, what platform do I want to learn? Because you can learn both platforms, but usually people tend to stick with one platform. Like me, I stick with just iOS because that's what I do at my job. So yeah, just let's move on to the next slide. All right, so let's delve a little bit more into Android development. So these are the things you need to know, the basic things at least for now, that you need to know when you are beginning to learn Android development. So the first thing is you can build or you can write Android apps in any operating system. So it works on Windows, it works on Mac, it works on Linux, which is another operating system. So if you have any of these machines, desktop that runs Windows or Mac or Linux, then you can definitely do Android development. When it comes to programming language, there are currently 2 programming languages that you know. Technically, kind of 3 because there's also XML, but XML, people don't usually put it there because you can actually, instead of writing the XML, you can actually drag and drop buttons and text boxes that you want in your app. But technically there are 3. You need to also learn XML, but it's pretty easy to actually learn. But if you want to learn Android development as a beginner, you want to learn either Kotlin or Java. And you may ask why I put those 2 languages, but the history about Android development is it started out with just being Java development, which is Java is a programming language. But I think a few years ago, they switched it over to Kotlin. And Kotlin is more friendly, it's easier to read, it's less, there's no, like Java is bulky and there's so much code you have to write just to achieve something. So my opinion and my advice to you as somebody that wants to learn Android development is to stick with Kotlin, and that's just really easy. And that's what the Android development is going towards. And then lastly, the tool that you use to actually build this one, because whether you write your code or whether you do your UI, the user interface of the app, you do it in Android Studio. So Android Studio is just the tool that lets you, that's where you basically write your code, and that's where you drag all the buttons and all the text boxes and all the messages that you want to put in your app. That's where you put everything in. So Android Studio. And let's move on to iOS development. So the thing about iOS development is it's owned by Apple. So Apple is very closed, and meaning that like they only want people in their ecosystem to be able to develop for iOS and also to use iOS. So unfortunately, at this time, iOS development is only possible during Mac. There is some caveat, and this is really about native development. There are other ways to actually build iOS apps that are not on only Mac OS. But when we're talking about native development, it's only possible on Mac OS at the moment. So that means that you have to have a Mac, which I understand it's expensive. So that's another reason why a lot of people tend to do Android development, just because you can do that on Windows or any operating system, really. So unfortunately, iOS is only for Mac OS. Now, the programming language to use for iOS development, there's one, the old one, the original one is Objective-C. Actually, there's another one before that, but Objective-C is the more tangible one. Objective-C is really archaic and very confusing. So if you are going to be going into iOS development, if you're interested in iOS development, I would highly recommend to not go the Objective-C route and learn Swift. Swift is the new language. I think the language just started like 5 years ago. Or it was released 5 years ago. It's very English-like. If you read the code, it looks like you're reading English. So it's really easy to learn and very helpful it's just very cool and concise compared to Objective-C. And now the tool to use to write your code. So where you write your code, where you drag in all your buttons and do all the other things that you need to do in your app, is called Xcode. It's the equivalent on Android is Android Studio, but in iOS development, it's called Xcode. Xcode is very bulky, so it could be overwhelming to work with, but later on, I will show you a demo of Xcode and just show you how to actually create a basic app. So I put this here because when I do these kinds of demos, I tend to forget to either send this out or show you how you can learn Android or iOS development. So if you want, you can either take a screenshot of this, or you can I can send this to Phil, who will later send it to everyone. But if you are interested in learning iOS development, there are a few ways to learn it, especially as a beginner. I recommend using Swift Playgrounds. Now, Swift Playground is an application, unfortunately, only available on Mac OS and only available on iPad. So it's basically like a game that you play, but the way you play the game is by writing code, and you basically learn Swift, which is the basics, or which is the basis of iOS development. So Swift Playgrounds, it's an app on the App Store. You can download it on Mac OS or iPad, and it's completely free. So definitely check it out. The next one is developer.apple.com. That's where you get a lot of information of how to build applications. The developer.apple.com. Just think of it as the holy grail, like as the Bible, so to say, the book that just dictates everything about iOS development. It was, made by Apple, obviously, and it has all the information you need. Apple's developer.apple.com is notorious for not being clear enough. So sometimes you may have to Google some things, but for the basic stuff, they do have good documentation, and I recommend that. And the last but not the least is Ray Wenderlich. The reason I put this here is because this is how I learned how to write iOS apps. And if I can learn it, I'm sure you can too. The only caveat though is there's some paid stuff on there, but I believe some of the basic stuff, like the beginner stuff, is free. So you can go on raywenderlich.com and definitely get to know more about introduction to iOS development. Now on the Android side, again, developer.android.com, kind of similar to developer.apple.com. Again, like the Bible, like the holy grail of Android development. They actually have a course that you can take, and it's completely free. So you should definitely, if you're thinking about doing Android development, definitely go on developer.android.com. That's the first thing you should look at. And once you're done with that course, you can go on YouTube and just look for tutorials on YouTube. Again, this is how I learned back in the day. I don't do Android development much anymore, but this is how I learned back in the day. So I highly recommend, after you go to developer.android.com, check out YouTube. And then last but not least, Ray Wenderlich, again, has content for introduction to Android development. So that's about it. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to talk about the demos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just show you how to create a basic app. And I can basically build an app in minutes. And when I say build an app, I can't put it on the App Store, but I can show you how to build an app in minutes. And you can basically build your own app. And then I have an app that I actually just built yesterday that just shows like superheroes that I couldn't think of anything. I'm not like the best ideas person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out Xcode. So if you see on the bottom here, and I hope everyone can see it, but on the bottom here, Xcode, this is the Xcode app. So when I click on it, what I'm going to do is actually, so normally you wouldn't see this window. I already have this window open. But if I want to create a new application, and this is for, again, Xcode, remember Xcode is for iOS development. If I want to create a new project or a new app, what I'll do is go to, once Xcode is shown, I'll go to File, New, and the way to create a new app is by going to Project. So if I click on Project, then make sure that iOS is already clicked on here, as you can see. And since you're creating an app, I'll just click on App, and you go next. And then you type in the name of the app that the name that you want to call the app. So in this case, I would say MD STEM Festival. Okay. And a lot of this stuff, you can just leave default. You may have some troubles in the beginning, like you have to set up some stuff, but again, you can look up some of this information on Ray Wenderlich. They actually go in depth into some of this stuff. But because of time, I'm just going to quickly go ahead and breeze through this part. So once you put the name of the product, which is basically the app name, I'll click on Next. And it's going to ask you where do you want to store this. So I'm just going to store it here in my code folder. And then what it's going to do, it's going to generate a boilerplate code for me. Now, so let's talk about what Xcode looks like. So as you can see here, and again, I'm going to try, and I know a lot of people are still probably don't know much about mobile development, so I'm going to gloss over a lot of things, but feel free to go to some of the materials I will send out so that you can get more in-depth information. But basically all you need to know is that this content view is the first page that runs when you create a new project. And here's what I'm going to do here. So as you can see here, there is, and don't bother about the struct, but all you need to just know is in your content view, and every new application or new project that you create will always have a content view file. What you need to know is in the body, where it says body, you can put all the things you want. So if, in this case, text refers to like a text that I want to display. And in this case, I'm displaying the hello world text. But what I want to do is actually, I want to change this to Hello MD STEM Festival. Okay, now you can notice on the right-hand side, so this is where I'm writing my code on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, there is something called like a preview. So you can preview what your app looks like as soon as you're making changes to your code. So if I click on resume up here, it's going to build my application and it's going to show me an iPhone silhouette, and we're just waiting for it to load. And something that's important to know is Xcode is notorious for it takes a lot of memory, and it's sometimes slow. So you have to bear with it. And it's important to have a machine that is at least, I would say, like 4 GB of RAM, just because Xcode takes a lot of power. And here we have it. So we have some random iPhone here. And as you can see here, the text is just to display text here. See, so it says Hello MD Festival. And if I change that to, let's say, Hello MD Festival, let's say 2020, you can see that it's changing as I'm typing the code. So it's very easy to test out something. And basically, this is an app. I mean, this app doesn't do much except say hello to MD Festival 2020, but basically you're ready for an app. Like you can, I mean, if you try to push this on the App Store, they're going to deny you because it's a very basic app that doesn't do anything, but you've basically built an app. And I can show you by actually running this app on an actual phone. And the good thing about Xcode is, or iOS development and Android development, is you don't actually have to have a device, a physical device to test your app. What you can do is you can actually choose from various simulators. So it's a simulator of the actual phone. So I am going to go ahead with the iPhone 11 because that's the phone I have right now personally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this play button. And what that's going to do is it's going to build my app and then fire up the simulator app. And the simulator app is basically your iPhone, but in your Mac. So it's a simulation of the real device. Again, it takes a while sometimes, so just bear with me here. So as you can see, this is the simulator. It looks like an iPhone 11. It has the notch here, and then it has the bezels on the right side, and it has the volumes on the left side and the silence button. And as you can see, it's building my app, and it looks just exactly like my phone, or like it looks exactly like an iPhone 11. It has the home button here, and here we go. This is the app. So if I actually go back to home, and it's a little tricky. Ooh. Okay, so as you can see here, I know this app doesn't have any logo, and you see other apps have logos, but this new app doesn't have a logo because I just created it, and normally you have to add your own logo to an app. But this is the default logo that comes with the app, like when you create an app for the first time. And as you can see here, the name of the app is MD STEM Festival, which was the name of the project that when I was creating the project. So if you go here, it just says Hello MD Festival. The other thing you can do is there's not only text, there are buttons, there are switch controls, there are many other views. You can do animations, and there's a lot of things you can do, but obviously we can't cover a lot of it. But what I'm going to do is show you an app that I made, and the reason why I'm showing, and one thing I want to make you understand is all the changes to this app that I have made, albeit that it's a small app, it's an app that doesn't do much. All the changes are just made in here, okay? And the reason why I'm saying that is in the app that I made for superheroes, all the changes I made were here. And you'll see that the app I built, even though again, it's not like the best, craziest app, but I'm just trying to show you that it doesn't take that much to actually write an app in iOS, at least, because it takes just little, and all the changes I needed to make was just this change and this change and this change, and you'll see the app that I actually built off of that code base. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to run it real quick. And this app basically just lists out some superheroes and just like list out like, or tells you what their powers are. And so I'm going to go to the simulator. So as you can see here, I'm actually running another simulator here. This is the iPod Touch. I'm going to stop that. I don't want to run this on the iPod Touch. So I'm going to change it to, let's say I will do the iPhone 12 this time, and I'll rerun it. And what that will do is it will restart a new, I'm going to close this. Okay. So this is from the previous app, but so let's give some time to install the app on it. And I'll just show you what I did. And I just want to show you like how much code I had to write for this app. And this app, again, may look simple, or it may look like a lot, but to me, it's just really fascinating that you can do a lot with us writing just a few lines of code. So this is the app. It just lists superheroes. And as you can see there, we have Catwoman, Flash, Spider-Man, and of course, I think of myself as a superhero, so I put myself on there. And the good thing is, if you click on Catwoman, for example, it says her power. It says, "Hi, I'm Catwoman, and I can combat the toughest criminals." And so yeah, really, I don't think Apple will let me ship or deploy or put this app on the App Store, but you can picture and you can imagine what you can do as in your environment. So if you need to create a list of something, for example, it's very easy to do as long as you learn Swift first and you learn how to get around Xcode. And a lot of this stuff you can actually learn on the developers.apple.com and through Swift Playground. So I highly recommend you do that. Phil, how are we doing on time?
We're doing good. I mean, you can, if you have more you want to go over, feel free to.
Yeah, I wanted to show everyone from the Android perspective. So just caveat, I've not done Android development for about 5 years now, so I'm a little rusty. But just wanted to show you what the Android development looks like. It's really easy again. It's more of the same thing to create. This is the app I was kind of messing around with yesterday. But if you want to create a new app, so let's do one for MD Festival. So what I'll do is, again, kind of similar to the Xcode, you do File, New, and then New Project. And then you basically, and yeah, this is the part that could get confusing, but again, a lot of this stuff you can find in the developers.android.com. It has all these tutorials and explains and goes into depth into like some of this stuff. But for our use case, we're going to use the basic activity. And what I'll do is I'll click on that, and then I'll go to next. And then what I'll do is I'll do MD Festival. Oh, sorry, MD STEM Festival. Okay, and the language, as you can see here, is Kotlin. So make sure that you don't choose Java. I think that everyone should be doing Kotlin because it's newer and it's where Android is going towards. So you want to learn the new things and not the old stuff. But obviously, it is important to also know the old stuff. But if you're a beginner, I will recommend just going the Kotlin way. So what I'm going to do is click on Finish. So it's important to note that the first time you actually do this, there's a lot of things you have to click through. I believe there are tutorials that tell you about this. So if you have any, like, maybe if you have any, if you're doing this for the first time, you can probably just go on YouTube and just go on YouTube and type in like intro to Android development, and I'm sure there's a tutorial out there that actually shows you step by step what you need to click. So what I'm doing here is waiting for the project to load up. so that I can start writing some code. And similar to the to Xcode, remember for Xcode we had the play button to run the application. Android Studio also has the play button, albeit it's in a different location. And as you can see, if you remember in Xcode, you were able to choose different simulators. Android also has the same. Android has a simulators. You can have, well, right now the default is a Pixel phone, but you can actually go to the Android, the AVD manager and actually basically choose a separate device that you want to run your application on. So here we are. So just like in Xcode, we have the thing called content view, where you put your code in and where you put your content of your application. In this case, what you want to do is you want to put everything in fragments. So the first fragment just means the first screen that will show up. So this is what and I know this may not seem intuitive, or it may not look clear to you, but what you need to know, if you remember when I said in Xcode, what you need to know is you have to look in the body, and that's where you put your code. In this case, when you go to the first fragment, what you want to put your views is in the onCreate part of the code. So as you can see here, what's here is it's doing a lot of background code, and this is where my limitations come through, but my advice is just to watch a tutorial and you can get more information. But the way to kind of edit and make edits to your app usually will be, like, for example, if you're trying to just change the default text, you will go into resources, and then you go to values, and then you go to strings. And this is where you can see where it says like hello first fragment. We can change this to say hello MD STEM Festival 2020. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to run the simulator. Again, you don't need an Android device to actually test your applications. You can actually test your applications using the simulator given to you on Android Studio. So as you can see here, it's created this Pixel 3 phone simulator, and it's currently running. If you can see down here, it says a lot of things are happening, but it says Gradle build running. It shows that your app is actually building and it's trying to run. And a lot of the, again, just like with Xcode, Android Studio does take a lot of power, so you want to make sure that you're not running this on a machine that does not have too much RAM. You want to have a machine that has like at least I think 4 gigabytes of RAM to be able to successfully and less painfully run Android Studio or Xcode. And there we go. So as you can see, basic stuff is just display some text. Again, this is a full app. This is an app. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to ship this app, but I'm not going to put this app on the Play Store. But this is an app really, and you can add more information to this app if you want to add buttons. In this case, there's already a button that's already been created for us. So if I click on next, it goes to the next page, and then if I want to go back to the main page, I click on previous. So yeah, so this again was just to show you that it's very easy, at least from a first time, to kind of build an app or get an app running quickly. It's very easy to do so, but obviously you need to understand the programming language. You also need to understand how to navigate the Xcode or Android Studio. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had today. I don't know if there are any questions. I know there are some people that are watching over on Facebook.
There are some questions, and I have one first, Bory.
Okay, sure.
How hard is it to get these apps onto the Apple Store and the Android stores?
Yes, that is a very good question. So when I was in school, I had to I built an app for University of Maryland for during finals, because a lot of information changes. That was my first time actually pushing an app to the App Store, and this was like, I think this is now over like 7 years ago now. But basically, It was painful initially, and it's tough because you have to go through a review. What happens is you have to obviously finish your code, write your code. When you write your code, then you have to basically generate a file that contains all your code that you basically ship to either Google or Apple. And once you ship that, or once you send that file that contains all your code to Apple or Google, then they go through a review process. So the review process could vary. Back then, it used to be like a week. It took a week for the app to be approved and show on the store. But now, nowadays, you can have an app reviewed in like 3 days. But the thing is, they've literally checked your code to make sure you're not doing anything malicious or anything weird, and they want to make sure. And sometimes if your app does something, like if the functionality of your app is very minimal, so like for example, if your app is just showing a text that just says hello, empty festival, they will reject it because it's not doing much. So you have to kind of have a good idea, and also like an idea that is passable. So it depends on Apple and it depends on Google. We don't know, so that's the problem. You just have to build an app that they like, basically.
Yes.
And
I
that's
can
how it works.
confirm that because we developed a video game and it has been very painful. We finally got it up, but it was a long and arduous process, and I didn't know. I'm assuming a mobile app will be easier because there's much less code, but yes, it was a difficult process. Couple other questions, and some of these people came late, so if you've already touched on this, please reply again. One person asked, are Android apps more popular than iOS apps, or are they about the same?
That's a very good question. I don't have the data on me, but the last time I checked the data in America, in the USA, I believe there are more iPhones, and
Okay.
I have to check again. I don't know how much, how that's changed, but I believe there are more iPhones or iOS application or iOS devices out there in America. But when you talk about the world level, there are more Android apps in the world, because again, Android is just cheaper in
Yeah.
general. So, but again, this is data from like a few years ago, so I don't know if it's changed. But yeah.
Okay. And then another person asked, is there, I guess, pre-written scripts, or do you have to code from scratch?
It depends on what you want to do, but out of the bat, the Android and iOS gives you like the hello whatever, hello world pre-built boilerplate code. There are ways that you can basically not copy code, but you can inject code from somebody else, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So for example, somebody could have made a button that is blue, like a blue that has a button that has a blue color, and you can kind of copy that code. You can kind of inject that code into your code, so that way you don't have to write that code to create that button. So that's a way to do it, and that's another topic for another day. But there's a way to do it, but there's code that you can basically inject to your code, basically. Yes.
Okay, great. Before I go to the last question, I have put in the chat box the the link to our survey. Please fill that out. The last question I have is, if you use Linux on your Mac, can you partition it to put Windows on it and program with Androids?
That is a very interesting question. I would not do that, just because if you are if you are taking resources, so if you're running a VM on your machine, you're already taking the resources from your RAM, for example. So I will just recommend that you run it, if you're doing it, especially if it's Android development. Android development works on like most operating systems. So I would just run it on the main operating system and not run the VM, because again, Android Studio takes a lot of power, a lot of RAM, and you want to reserve that RAM for Android Studio and not running a VM and then running Android Studio on that VM. I mean, unless you have like maybe 32 gigabytes RAM on your machine, I would not go that route.
Okay. All right. We do have another question. What do you think about no-code app builders?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And to be honest, I'm not the best at teaching kids in terms of like I don't know how kids learn. Like, I'm sure there are studies, like, are kids better off learning by dragging things around and
Mhm.
doing all this picture stuff, or are they better off by seeing an example and seeing me writing code and then they copy me? I don't know the answer to that. So what I think specifically, I think it's a good way to start, to kind of just get your interest and you know the juices in your head flowing. But I think at the end of the day, you want to learn the language, because a lot of this, like the app builders and things like that, I understand the need for it, and I understand that like a lot of kids may get disinterested if you start showing them code. So maybe that's the reason to not to use things like that. But personally, if you want to learn, I would start out with learning with the code. I also think it depends on your age level. So if you are in high school, for example, I think you can learn the code. If you're in like elementary school, middle school, then maybe you can say yes, we can do app builders. But once as you start getting advanced in your school, you should definitely start writing code. I know a lot of kids that, like, I go to a lot of hackathons, which is like a competition that basically in a weekend you build an app. And I mentor for a lot of these hackathons, and I see middle school students writing code. So I don't think it's too early to write code. And from the iOS perspective, Swift Playgrounds actually does a good job of that, because it's kind of like a no, it's not like a no code app builder. It's kind of like an app builder, but like has some code, but it's very interesting. It's very engaging. So I think Swift Playground is the perfect tool for people, kids in elementary school, for example, to be able to learn how to code.
All right. Well, I think this has been very informative, and I believe most of the people watching. If you came in late, you are this has been streaming on Facebook, so at probably about 2 o'clock or shortly before that, the full program will be on, so you can watch the full program. We ask you to encourage others to watch it as well. And if you have any questions for me, I can relay them to Bori. My email is mdstemfest@gmail.com. I want to thank you again, Bori, for this excellent presentation, and good luck and have a great day. And also for everybody, please watch as many STEM Festivals events as you can. At 4 p.m. on Facebook, we have an interview with astronaut Ricky Arnold. So if you can, please join us for that. So have a great day, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phil. Bye.
Thank you.